It's been a while since we've seen the Red Scare. They stormed into week 1 and put a quick mark into the win column back when we just had 3 teams. But last week, the Greenliners returned to the dojo as the 4th squad and made a big impression. So we're in for a real treat today with a pair of undefeated teams at the desk. These guys will be talking about some other undefeateds in the NFL. The Broncos have seemingly lost Peyton Manning to Papa John's. So are the 6-0 Broncos for real? And the Patriots may not have put 60 points on the scoreboard last week, but one play gave them all the satisfaction they needed. Did this victory usher in the beginning of the end of the Chuck Pagano era? That's just the tip of the iceberg. No more time to waste, though. The first to 2-0 on the line. UC, let's go. Hello and welcome to week 4 of Unsportsmanlike Conduct. I'm your host, Damon Turbot. There's a lot of buzz surrounding this matchup, but let's go to a face we haven't seen in a little while, and that's Estelle Iserlo. How have you been?
I've been good. I enjoyed the break, but I'm ready to be back on here. I'm ready to talk about sports.
First to 2-0 on the line. How are you feeling about that?
I'm feeling good. I think we've got it. I think we might take it this year.
All right, and to the Greenliners and Josh Powers, your first time on the show last week. What were your thoughts?
It was pretty good. Went 1-1, hopefully going 2-0. Actually going to go 2-0 today, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Just continue where we left off.
Continue where we left off. All right, well, let's get to the gridiron, and it was a battle of wits on Sunday night in Indianapolis. Well, maybe not quite. The Pats put up 30-plus on the Colts in the highly anticipated Deflategate rematch. The highlight of the night came in an attempted battle of wits where Chuck Pagano called one of the most confusing plays the game has ever seen on a crucial 4th and 3, and the result was one of the ugliest plays the game has ever seen. Indy was not out of the game at the time, but that play pretty much changed the game for the worse. They went on to lose the game, bringing the Colts to 3-3, and these guys were dawn favorites to win the AFC by Vegas before the season. Coach Chuck Pagano took the blame as if everybody else already didn't know it was his fault, and now some are giving him a second look. So I ask you this, Estelle, is this the beginning of the end of the Chuck Pagano era?
You know, I'm going to have to say no because one play does not define a season. And I think that Chuck Pagano has a lot of potential, and you have to look at his past body of work. And the season is 3-3, and so they're not terrible. They're not 0-6, and they still have a lot of potential. And not to mention they have Mike Adams and Clayton Gathers was injured, and the play that they did, it was a miscommunication. Clayton Gathers had practiced that play all week, but Griff Whalen ended up being able to set, and that was not how it was supposed to go. And it was a bad play, but I think that all in all, that one play does not define his season. All
right, one play does not define. Josh, your take on that?
Well, you know what? They've gotten to the playoffs 3 times under Pagano, but they've lost all 3 times, and it's quite obvious that they can't win a Super Bowl. He is responsible for what they are calling the worst play in NFL history, because let's be honest, besides the butt fumble, you can't really get much worse than that. The division is filled with joke teams. Anybody can beat the AFC South, and going into an AFC South team is pretty much like going to practice on a Sunday morning. I mean, let's be completely honest here. They run the play. The punter didn't know what was going on. They've been practicing for a year and couldn't complete it. The offense is 28th in the league right now in rushing attempts, and this year the defense has allowed the most yards of any team. They're 29th out of 30 in the NFL, and the team is out of the top 5 in both passing yards and total yards for all 4 seasons of Pagano's reign.
Colts struggling on both sides of the ball, but you say Chuck Pagano should not get the action.
No, I think, let it play out. See if you can make them win more games for the rest of the season. You never know. They could go to the playoffs. They're still 3-3. They're not 0-6.
They could go to the playoffs. They do play in the AFC South.
It's widely known there's a huge disconnect between Pagano and the GMs of the Colts. When you have that kind of tension going on in the clubhouse, how are you supposed to function? You can't have a playoff team when your GM doesn't like your head coach and your head coach doesn't like the GM. It doesn't work.
All right, well, I'm going to wrap it up there. And, I kind of think maybe Pagano should get the axe, but at the same time, he has gone to the playoffs 3 times. He hasn't won a Super Bowl, of course, but he's done pretty well with that team. They're probably going to win the division because they play in a terrible division, and I trust Andrew Luck to kind of get it rolling. I think Pagano will get it figured out. So I'm going to give the points to the Red Scare. But now, former Colt great Peyton Manning has been in the game for a long time, and we certainly know he's not the QB he once was in Indy. He's not even close to the Peyton Manning who was under center 2 years ago for Denver. But for as poorly as he has performed at this point, the Broncos they're feeling pretty good. They're 6-0. But their best win on paper is against the 3-2 Teddy Bridgewater Minnesota Vikings. So have the Broncos found a recipe for success despite their shortcomings at QB, or are the Broncos just kind of benefiting from an easy schedule, Josh?
Well, here's the thing. The key to this is under 500. We're going to look at Baltimore, 1-5. Kansas City, 1-5. Lions are 1-5. The Vikings are the only team above 500, 3-2. Raiders are 2-3, and the Browns are 2-4. Now, the Vikings, being the only team above 500, they barely won against them. They won by 3 points. The thing is, 5 out of the 6 games have also been decided by less than a touchdown. Now, you can't call a team a Super Bowl contender if they haven't even played a real contender themselves. They're ranked 29th in passing yards per game, 30th in rushing yards, 31st in yards per play, 27th in passing yards, and they're 29th in red zone touchdown percentage. And Manning leads the NFL with 10 interceptions. That's 16 picks over his last 11 games.
Not good numbers there, Estelle.
Yeah, but I still have to say they're a Super Bowl contender. I mean, they haven't played the best teams, but we don't know. They're playing the Steelers coming and the Patriots, and we don't know if they're going to win them or not, so we can't really draw conclusions. And also, they've got one of the best defenses in the league right now. Wade Phillips is one of the best defensive coordinators, and he's showing great knowledge in the league currently, and not to mention they still have Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders and Manning. Manning is Manning. He's good. He's old, but he's good, and their offense is still fine.
Offense is still fine, Josh.
Well, here's the thing. You look at Manning and Brady, near the same age, 1 year difference actually. Brady's playing the best football of his life while Manning is playing probably the worst. On top of that, anyone can be 6-0 when you play cupcake teams every Sunday. I mean, hell, I could be 6-0 if I played cupcake teams every Sunday. Look at the schedule ahead, though. They're playing the Patriots. They have the Chargers. They have the Steelers. And they have Green Bay when they come back from the bye week. Those are tough games. Their whole schedule is very, very tough going ahead. They are in place for some serious losses.
Well, first of all, I think I'm going to get you a chin strap and a helmet. We're going to put him out there to see how he does compared to the Broncos. But Estelle, God, go off of that.
We don't really know how they're going to do. We have no idea. We can't predict that because Manning may come and just slay those teams. We have no idea. He's still extremely talented, and their team's very, very professional. I think they're still a Super Bowl contender.
It's also tough to change the course of history when you're just
That's
continuing
true.
on a slide. It's not the easiest thing to just bounce back from throwing 16 picks in 11 games. It's not the easiest thing.
Yeah, we're seeing some interesting things. Of course, as Josh pointed out, Brady is only a year younger than Manning, but I think Manning has showed that he's deteriorating a little bit faster than Brady did. Manning did a lot more passing throughout his career, so maybe that might have something to do with it. So I'm going to give the points to Josh here. The Broncos are great on defense, but that offense, given all the weapons they have, they should be doing a little bit better on that side of the ball. But one round down here at the UC, and we're off to a good start. It's 2-2, just like we expected. Andre Tarquinio and John Newton are coming in the middle round when we come back. Welcome back to the UC. On to the lightning round now, so it's going to be quick. College football is the game this week. But let's start. I just want to go to Andre real quickly. How much do you want to show how biased you are?
There is no bias here. This is just the sweatshirt I chose to wear today. I just forgot to take it off before I got on. I'm completely unbiased. You'll see once the first question comes around.
Well, I hope you don't get the first question, but I don't know. But let's move on. And question number 1 is for the number 1 team in the nation. This is why I talked about his sweatshirt. Urban Meyer's Ohio State Buckeyes. The team remains undefeated, but the road has certainly been rockier than anticipated after breezing their way to the national title last year. They haven't lost their number 1 preseason ranking, but do they deserve the top spot, John?
They certainly don't. Baylor deserves that number 1 spot. They've averaged 63.8 points per contest. Ohio State has had 2 very shaky, uncomfortable wins, winning just by 7 points. But Baylor, when they're facing teams in their home arenas, they've held their opponents to 14.
Wow, that's super impressive against the garbage opponents they've played. Tell me who they've played. Please tell me who they've played. Yeah, Ohio State, you're right. They're undefeated. Last year's national champions bring back virtually everybody that matters. And Cardale Jones is officially getting benched. And J.T. Barrett played very impressive in that last win against Penn State. Penn State was 5-1 coming into that game. You could have argued they should have been ranked. They destroyed Virginia Tech in the first game of the season. The reason we're freaking out about this Ohio State thing is because we had such high expectations for them, myself included, as you can tell. We had such high expectations of them coming into the season that, yes, we want them to win every game by 50 or 60. You're talking about Baylor dominating
but 7
teams.
against NIU?
It doesn't matter. Baylor's
Unfortunately,
dominating.
I can't give you guys time to argue back and forth. That's the name of the game. That's the lightning round. That's the new UC. I'm going to have to give the point to Andre. He made a good point there at the end. I think that Ohio State, we expected them to just be this amazing football team. They haven't won by 50 or 60 points, as he said, but they're still winning their ball games and doing what they need to do to go back to the college playoffs and hopefully to the national championship for them and for Andre's sweatshirt. But moving on, one of the teams who were expected to possibly challenge those Buckeyes in the playoffs were the USC Trojans. But after a few short weeks, the team has fallen from the top 10 and has lost his coach. Steve Sarkisian left Pasadena for a much bigger challenge, but that still leaves a team without a coach. Now, this is one of the most highly coveted jobs in all of sports. So is somebody going to want this job? Andre, who will be the USC coach?
Well, I'm going to give you a realistic answer and also an answer that sticks with this Ohio State sweatshirt. It's Tom Herman. You may not know the name yet, but you will in a few weeks. You probably should know the name by now. He's Houston's head coach right now. Last year's Ohio State offensive coordinator actually been the offensive coordinator since Urban took over. And since he took over, they haven't lost a game in the Big Ten when he took over. That offense was averaging over 44 points a game last year. And then all of a sudden this year, the offense drops off. Their defense is why they're undefeated and why they're the #1 team. But that offense has had a huge drop-off. All of a sudden now Houston is one of the best offensive teams in the nation and undefeated still. Look what he's done with that turnaround. There's no reason why. Also, you bring in a slightly lesser name so that he doesn't have the same type of pressure that a bigger name guy would have on him when he comes in.
Couple good points, John.
I'm going to have to go with Kyle Whittingham. He's coached Utah to a 6-0 record so far.
So why would he
Utah's
leave?
not going to be a perennial threat for
They're
the college
better than
football
USC.
playoffs,
Why would he
but
leave?
he's good enough to belong at USC because of his 6-0 record at Utah. Since they won't be perennial threats, he would love to take the USC job.
They're better than
Okay,
USC.
well,
Why would he leave?
Unfortunately, Andre, we don't get to argue in the middle round.
That's
That's the new UC. And unfortunately, John, I like where you're getting at. I think that Whittingham would be a great coach. Utah is phenomenal this year, but we don't know if he even wants to leave Utah. They're #3 in the country. USC is kind of in shambles right now. I'm going to have to give the point to Andre. I think Herman has done some great things, and we've seen the success of Houston. So I'm going to have to give the points there, and he should be the next coach of USC. Moving on, though, the SEC seems like it'll never go away. They once again have a team in the top 5 and 2 top 10 teams. They're arguably the best conference in college football, and they have been for years, but the gap has certainly been closed. If not, another conference may have passed them. John, are they the best, or has the new conference taken over?
Honestly, I think the Big Ten has taken over. The SEC is no longer the dominant conference in college football. It's got a bunch of good teams, some great teams, but the Big Ten has the most great teams. Leaps and bounds above the ACC. They should not even be in this conversation. And the SEC, we thought they might have 2 or 3 teams in the college football playoff. They might barely have one. Michigan State, Ohio State, and Iowa all undefeated in the Big Ten. Michigan, Penn State, and Iowa all serious contenders. SEC's in trouble.
I'm about to talk myself in circles because I know I've talked up the Buckeyes so much and the Big Ten a little bit. But quite frankly, the SEC is still the conference to beat. The Big Ten has the team to beat Ohio State, but the SEC overall in terms of conference, they do have 4 top 25 teams, of course, still. And the Big Ten's been impressive. I'll give you that. They're very top-heavy with those top 4 teams. But what the SEC did out of conference is so impressive. 34-5 out of conference, 87% in their out-of-conference games. Now they're beating each other up in conference, of course. But that 87% is over 10 points higher than any other conference playing out of conference. I don't know how you can say that that's not the best conference. I just don't think it's fair. They're very even-keeled in the middle there. But in terms of those top teams, somebody's going to get in from the SEC. Somebody's going to get in from the Big Ten as well. I mean, it's all about those middle teams and those bottom teams, and the SEC is better than the Big Ten there.
You bring up the point someone's going to get in. Well, I think the Big Ten has a shot to get 2 guys in. We saw what Sparty did last week, and of course, your Ohio State Buckeyes, as you said. So I'm going to have to give the points to John here. I think it's a new era. The SEC, the gap has certainly closed, so points going to the Green Liners. Now, earlier, we went over how the Colts should have punted the ball. The Michigan Wolverines were in a similar situation the day before that, except maybe they should have punted the ball. A debacle on the last play brought a win to Sparty and brought back memories of that wild loss to Appalachian State a few years ago. Of these 2 plays, which one was the one that the Maize and Blue should try the hardest to forget, Andre?
Try the hardest to forget is an interesting way to put it, but I think that this one is kind of the harder one to forget, and I'll tell you why. Because that Appalachian State game, it was at the beginning of the year, and what happened was, we didn't realize it at the time, but they finished the season 8-4, and that was kind of the beginning of the end of that Michigan dominance in the mid-2000s. But what happened here is just this Michigan team was looking really, really good and really scary. They're playing Ohio State at the Big House at the end of the year. On that last play, you look ahead, if they beat Ohio State in that last game, they could be looking at a national championship.
You mean Michigan
I mean,
State?
a playoff bid. Yes, if they beat Michigan State, but then they're playing Ohio State at the end of the year at the Big House. And I'm saying if they were probably looking past that Michigan State play because there's one play left, all of a sudden you beat Ohio State in that last game, and then all of a sudden you're looking at a playoff bid. But they lose that game to Michigan State because of that one play. They have no chance of a playoff bid, even if they beat Ohio State. It's an awful essentially end to their season right now. It ends their season in the middle of the year. It's just such a tough loss to get over.
It is a tough loss. So he's going to go with that one over that famous Appalachian State game. John, what's your opinion?
Back in 2007, T.J. Corman had a phenomenal catch, deked out a few defenders, and got a 20-yard gain to put Appalachian State in field goal position. They nailed the field goal and blocked the field goal from 20, 25 yards out that Michigan should have had to put them over the top.
Yards, so. But
32 yards, but check this out. This is one of the greatest college football wins of all time. In a few years, we won't be talking about this Michigan State game anymore. One of the greatest
I haven't heard
upsets
anybody
at the
talking
beginning
about
of the
the
season,
Appalachian
not
State
just in
game.
college history, but in sports history.
Well, I got to give the points to Andre here. I think we will be talking about this one for a while. This was a 7 versus 12 game. Huge implications in Michigan. They lose it on their home field. I'm going to have to give the points to Andre. But moving on, Michigan's loss killed its title chances, but the win for Michigan State threw them right into the playoff mix and has kept them undefeated at 7-0. They have a lot of other competition, though. 7 other schools in the top 10 alone still have not lost a game. So which of these teams, John, has the best chance to run the table?
It's got to be Iowa. They've already beaten their toughest tests in Wisconsin, Northeastern, and Pitt. They have no ranked teams left on their schedule. So up until the championship game, they should be fine. It should be smooth sailing for Iowa.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood the question, but I thought we were talking about undefeated after the whole season, including up until the playoffs. And up until the playoffs, in that championship game, they're going to be facing probably Ohio State, possibly Michigan State, but probably Ohio State. Either way, they're going to lose that game. I promise you that. I'll tell you who it is. It's Clemson. Are you kidding me with the schedule? They play at Miami, North Carolina State, Syracuse, South Carolina, and then their one tough game, the only tough game, is Florida State, and it's at home. They're going to beat Florida State. Florida State, we've seen them struggle all year long. They'll beat them, especially since it's at home. I mean, those games are cupcakes. You talk about Iowa having the cupcake schedule. Those games are cupcakes.
Those
I
are
just
very
explained
dangerous.
them to you.
ACC is dangerous.
It's certainly not dangerous.
Well,
you said it in the first
I'm
question.
gonna end
Just because
this.
they're not the greatest doesn't
Okay.
mean they're not dangerous.
Well,
said it in the first question.
I like cupcakes, so I'm glad I like all the cupcake talk here. But once again, I'm going to have to go with Andre here. The points are going to the Red Scare, and that means the middle round and the lead is going to the Red Scare. So another round over. Red Scare sits in the lead at 5-4, excuse me, after 2 frames. 3 more questions lie ahead after the break. Malcolm Kellner and Carter Bowers will be talking all things association, including their preseason favorites to win the NBA title, so don't go anywhere. All right, back to business here at the dojo. The score is 6-3, not 5-4, as I said before. Apparently, I get my math wrong every week, so I apologize. But we enter our final round here. Big win on the line, so let's begin with the man looking to change his team's fortune. That's Carter Bowers. You're down 3 points here. You pretty much got a sweep here to win. How you feeling?
I don't know. Now you put it like that, I'm kind of nervous. No, I'm just kidding. I'm feeling pretty good. Happy belated birthday, by the way, Damon. I just want to make sure everyone at EIV knows that. Happy birthday to our host, Damon Turbot.
Well, look at that. I think you just swept the middle round. I think we can go home now.
Hey, come on.
Malcolm, yeah, it's been a while since we've seen you
It
here.
has been a while. I was going to wish you a happy birthday, too. Happy 22nd. It's
Yeah,
kind of
but you
not
didn't.
that
You
exciting of a birthday, but still, hope you had a good one nonetheless. No, I'm excited. Good to be back at the desk. I got a good opponent, Carter. Should be a fun round.
22 is not very fun, and that's very true. But let's just forget about birthday talk and let's move on. Let's go to the hardwood now. What a season it was in the NBA last year. The finals featured the Cavs and Warriors, 2 teams not used to seeing this type of success, certainly, and this was the theme of the season, really. Milwaukee, Portland, New Orleans, they all saw rare playoff action, but no story was as impressive as that of the Atlanta Hawks. After missing the playoffs 2 years ago, 38-44 record, got that 8th seed. The Hawks looked terrible. Well, they shocked the league last year and won 60 games last season en route to the top seed in the Eastern Conference, and of course that trip to the Eastern Conference Finals. Teams rarely make huge strides like this, but Atlanta showed everybody. Well, it showed anybody can do it. Malcolm, who has the best chance? Of course, we may not see a 22-game jump, but who may be the Hawks this year?
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you that any team is going to make that big of a jump, but I think a team that's going to make still a huge jump is the Miami Heat. 37-45 last year. They have so much room for improvement. They missed the playoffs in a bad Eastern Conference. Here's why they're going to do it. They've got Chris Bosh coming back from that that heart problem. He's going to be he's looking good in the preseason, healthy all year. Looks like Goran Dragic. They picked him up at the trade deadline. They signed him to the big max deal. They're going to have him stabilizing the point guard positions, one of the best in the game for a full season. And then if that wasn't enough, in free agency they were active. They got Amari Stoudemire, who's not what he used to be, but he's still a solid player off the bench. They got Gerald Green, another solid athletic player off the bench. And if that wasn't enough, in the draft they picked up a guy who might turn out to be the best pro, Justice Winslow. He was a star at Duke, star potential, 6'6", athletic. I mean, you're a Duke fan, you know all the intangibles he has. They got him. This is a team looking like it's going to be a top seed in the Eastern Conference.
So now he's trying to get on my side, touching my little Duke feels. Let's go over to Carter.
I'm going to also go with a team from the East Coast. I'm going to go with Frank Vogel and the Indiana Pacers. You're coming back with a healthy Paul George, one of the best perimeter scorers, definitely one of the more all-around players, especially from the wing in the NBA. When he's healthy, the Pacers are completely clicking. I think when you add guys like Monta Ellis, who's an offensive machine, 19 points per game for his career, you add that coming off of the bench or depending on where you want to slot him in. Frank Vogel commands one of the best defensive presences in the NBA. They only had 38 wins last season. There's a lot of room for improvement there as well, especially in the weaker East Conference. As we all know, the West to the East isn't always necessarily as clear-cut, but this year it's going to get a little bit better. I think the Pacers are going to be the one that surprises this year.
All right, so two similar teams, Malcolm. Are there any baggage issues here? Maybe that might make a difference.
Definitely some baggage with the Pacers. You talked about Monta Ellis, how he's going to help their offense, but defense, that's a big problem. We all know how much of a defensive liability Ellis is. And, oh, yeah, they lost their defensive stalwart center, Roy Hibbert. He went to the Lakers. Who do they have at center now? Ian Mahinmi? I mean, that's an absolute joke. They have no defense. Paul George plays pretty good defense, but you need more than one guy. I mean, this is a team, yeah, they're going to benefit from George coming back, and they will win more games. But if you look at the Heat and their changes, Bosch, Dragic, Justice Winslow, Amari, just all the additions they're bringing back, Dwayne Wade coming back, he's supposed to be healthier than before, and he won't have to play as many minutes. So if they can keep him healthy.
You're trying to bet on a healthy Dwayne Wade, though? I mean,
but you don't even need a healthy Dwayne Wade.
I mean, yeah.
He can play 15, 20 minutes a game.
Hibbert, and I know that Monta Ellis in his career hasn't necessarily been a defensive stalwart, but if you put him in a system like Frank Vogel, where you just allow him to score off of the wing, especially coming off the bench, defense isn't necessarily the issue with Monta Ellis, especially with guard play when you have guys like George Hill who can lock up with some of the best in the NBA. I don't think that's as much of a defensive concern.
Goran Dragic over George Hill 7 days a week, though. There's just so many more improvements for the
I'm
Heat.
going to have to end the point here. I think both teams, they're very close, and they're both going to be playoff teams again, but I'm going to have to give the points to Malcolm here. Just way too many additions on that Heat side. Of course, a couple great, not necessarily moves, but they got Paul George back. They did make other moves to acquire guys like Monta Ellis, so I like what they did, but the Heat just did a little bit more than I think anybody else in the NBA. Watch them in the Eastern Conference Finals, by the way. But anyway, let's move on. What was so surprising about the Hawks team, though, that we were talking about? It was the lack of star power on the team, really. But they were halted, of course, quickly by the star power of LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Both of these teams in the finals had a star, Steph Curry, of course, being the other one, and it has proven to be vital to postseason success. Every team wishes, of course, they could have a star, but not all teams are that lucky. You guys are lucky because you can pick whoever you want, one guy on your team. Carter, who convinced me who I should build a franchise around?
I mean, we were joking before the show about who I really think should be. But when you look at money, I think it's clear. Look at money and age in terms of his player efficiency rating. I think it's got to be DeMarcus Cousins, 25.3 player efficiency rating. He's only 25 years old. He is the best all-around center in the National Basketball Association, hands down. 24 points a game, 13 boards, just under 2 blocks a game. He is an absolute beast. At 24 years old, he's someone that you absolutely could build the franchise around. I don't care about his attitude issues. I don't care about his morality, anything like that. He is the #1 star in this league, and that's definitely someone to build a team around. So.
#1 star in the league, Boogie Cousins. Malcolm.
Well, you know, DeMarcus Cousins is a great player, but when you consider what you need and all the factors you need, when you pick the guy to build your, potential franchise around, I'm sorry, but character issues do matter. A work ethic does matter. That's why I want Anthony Davis, who's literally the perfect basketball player. There's nothing wrong with him. He works hard. He's extremely talented. 24.2 and 10.2 averages in points and rebounds last year. 5th in MVP voting. First in the entire league, not just young players, but overall in player efficiency rating. I mean, there's nothing not to like. And, oh yeah, he's only 22 years old. I don't know what Cousins is, maybe 26?
25.
25. So Davis has a few years on him. He's already, I think, a better all-around player. I wouldn't want Davis right now and in the future. Plus, with the intangibles, the character issues, there's never been one bad word about Davis. Meanwhile, DeMarcus Cousins is getting in fights with his teammates. He and George Karl were going back and forth at it all summer.
Yeah, but Malcolm,
is that really the guy I want to build my franchise
Malcolm, the biggest
around?
thing about this question is money, man. Look at he just signed a max deal, an NBA record deal. He's making $29 million
And Cousins will get that within a year.
Yeah, in a couple of years, but he's still making 16 right now, and that's guaranteed for the next 2 years. 16 to 29, that's a 13 mil difference, 26 million over 2 years. Yes, I understand that Anthony Davis has the highest player efficiency rating in the NBA, but in terms of bang for your buck, it has to be DeMarcus Cousins, especially since he's done it 4 more years in the NBA than DeMarcus Cousins has.
Actually, more bang for your buck would probably go to Davis because Cousins will sign his max deal once they raise the salary cap a ton.
In a couple of years, though.
Once they raise the cap, so he'll get more money probably than Davis.
Because of guys like Anthony Davis, who are now making just under $30 million a year.
Right,
And
but
think
once
about
they
that.
raise the cap, his deal will be a bargain.
But he's going to be 27 when his contract runs up. He's going to probably sign for $45 million a year.
And he'll
Something
be worth it
ridiculous like
because
that.
he's the best overall player in the NBA.
Yeah, well, I'm
NBA
gonna have to end it there, and I was gonna give the point to Carter, but I think that last point Malcolm made there about the salary cap changing, how much Cousins would make next year, or maybe the year after that takes the cake for me. Very good point there. So points going to the Greenliners. The Greenliners have won, but we do have one more question, and as I promised before break, it is time for finals predictions. The Warriors, of course, won the title last year, but it's no secret that the gap is closed, and there are a number of teams in that realm. So NBA champion, let's hear from Malcolm first. Who you got?
All right, well, I love the Warriors, Damon. I think they're a great team. I think they have a solid chance to get back to the finals this year. But if I had to pick a team to win it all, I got to go with the Cavs, simply because the Eastern Conference is so bad, so they nearly have a spot in the finals guaranteed. You can pretty much place them in the finals, whereas the West is so good. There's so many stacked teams besides the Warriors, the Spurs, the Clippers, the Thunder, the Grizzlies. So many good teams that the Warriors will be up against. You don't even know if they'll make it past round 2, whereas the Cavs lock it up for a spot in the finals. And LeBron, in his second year with the new Big Three, just like he needed a year with the Heat, how they didn't win it at first, they came up short in the finals. Oh, just like last year. But last year they had Kevin Love out, Kyrie Irving out. This year, those guys coming back healthy. I mean, it's got to be the Cavs. That's why they're the Vegas favorite to win.
East versus West.
Big reason I'm going to disagree with you, Malcolm, is because of David Blatt, or should I say LeBron James, who is the coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
That's good.
I hate LeBron. I'm the first person to admit it. I'm a huge Celtics fan, so I've also always hated him for his entire career. I think that what he's doing to the Cavs organization as a whole is similar to what Dwight Howard was doing to the Orlando Magic. I think this year is going to end in turmoil, 100%. Kyrie Irving has never proven that he can go an entire season without being completely healthy. I think if you're going to bet on a guy like LeBron to take you to the finals, yeah, that might be a good bet in the long run. But in terms of his efficiency and being able to coach the team at the same time, I don't think that even a guy like LeBron can do that. I think in terms of the teams that I want to win this, just in terms of who I want to see there, I think the San Antonio Spurs have to be my pick. You add a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge, only 30 years old, working with a coach like Greg Popovich, who is someone that I want in my corner, especially given his proven track record in the finals, getting there outside of the Western Conference. I have to go with the San Antonio Spurs, having LaMarcus learning under guys like Tim Duncan. So.
Well, the Spurs are great, and I like the Spurs, and the addition of Aldridge will help them. But here's the problem. Again, they're in the Western Conference, so there's no sort of guarantee they're going to make it to the finals, whereas in the East, the Cavs already have the spot in the finals. You made a good point about David Blatt. I don't think he's a good coach. I think he's a puppet for LeBron. But here's the thing. Let's go back 5 years ago with the Heat. Did anyone think Eric Spoelstra was a good coach? No, he was a laughingstock. But LeBron still won 2 titles, basically being the coach of that team. So there's no reason why he can't be the coach of this team and win the finals
again. You talk about
again.
Eric Spoelstra, though. He went 2-5. You know what I mean? So you can't say that just because LeBron gets them to the finals, they're going to win the finals. The Cavs probably are going to win the East. I mean, look at the East. We've talked about it. We've joked about it on the show. It is obviously the weaker of the 2 divisions, but you have to look at teams that they're going to be going up against in a 7-game series, like the San Antonio Spurs, like the Golden State Warriors, who have a very real chance of getting back outside of the West Coast. I really think it has to be the Spurs, given their just veteran leadership.
But you mentioned the Warriors. The Spurs will have to go through the Warriors at some point, and I don't see that happening. The Spurs are so old. I know they're counted out year after year for being old, but this year, I mean, Tim Duncan's like 39. Ginobili's
That's
like
why you
36.
signed LaMarcus Aldridge. You don't need
Yeah,
Tim Duncan
but they're
anymore.
still-
He's just there to
But
teach
Aldridge
LaMarcus
can't take
Aldridge
them the whole
how
way.
to run
The
that
West
team.
is too good.
No, he 100%
Ca-
can do that.
the
He almost
East
did
is
it with
too
Portland.
bad.
I'm gonna
which
have
is why
to.
the Cavs
I'm gonna
are
have to
there.
end it there. You just said it yourself. Dug your own grave. The West is too good, and for that reason, I'm gonna have to give it to the San Antonio Spurs and Carter here. The Spurs they're a little bit of a sneaky pick, but I like the addition of Aldridge, and I think if you can get through the Western Conference, I think you can run through just about anybody, especially if turmoil has already started to settle in Cleveland by the time the finals come around. So that is all the time we have. Unfortunately, Carter got the last points, but does not get the last laugh. The win goes to the Red Scare. They are your winners today. They advanced to 2-0 on the season. As for the Green Line as well, they're still looking pretty good at 1-1, but now looking up at first place. And you guys will have to look on when we, excuse me, you guys will have to look on when we come back from break, as the victors will give us the yellow cards. A solid win today for the 2-0 Red Scare. They're feeling pretty good, and now it's time for these guys to talk about whatever they want. So we begin with Andre. Take it away.
Yeah, so I was trying to decide on what it should be, and then I looked down and realized it's got to be something on Ohio State. So I think I'll just talk about the rest of their season, because we kind of, so at certain points we trashed on them, at certain points I tried to praise them, but they're going to win the championship this year. They're going to go back-to-back. That's just how I feel. That's just how it's going to be. I mean, they have Michigan State. They have Michigan. They're going to beat them. I love the switch to J.T. Barrett at quarterback. I love everything they've done. Urban Meyer has yet to lose a game in the Big Ten regular season. How insane is that? And yet somehow we keep counting them out. We want them to lose. I don't know. They've become the big bullies in the NCAA, and somehow people are going against them now. They're going to win it all. Just watch.
Andre is the biggest fangirl. By the way, he does have a suit on under this.
Just
He
so we're
even
aware.
wore a suit just to wear his Buckeye sweatshirt over it, so that shows dedication.
It's
But
dedication.
let's go to Malcolm.
All right, well, my yellow card today is a rant about DraftKings and FanDuel. I don't know about you, but I am so freaking sick of all these goddamn commercials in every sporting event, billboards, everything. You can't escape FanDuel and DraftKings. It's terrible. And they make my problem with it is they make it seem so easy. I deposited $20 and I won $2 million. And then a guy goes, "There's nothing special about me. I just played and they didn't." And then pick your players and pick up your cash, all from your cell phone while you're holding your baby at a backyard barbecue. No, the only people who win consistently on these daily fantasy sites are MIT people and people like that who have algorithms who do it. 85% of the people who play lose. I just saw that in an article. I'll do you a favor. Save your time, save your money. I hope the government shuts down these two awful websites, but until then, don't waste your money, because you're going to lose unless you have an algorithm behind it. You're not going to win because you have some lines written on your hand and you think you have some special recipe to success, because you don't.
That's right. Malcolm's putting the foot down. It is now his show. He runs this dojo. Hopefully, the government doesn't shut down a wonderful site known as EIVTV.com,
Oh, no, they can
which
leave
is
that
where
up.
which is where you can check us out, watch all of our episodes. But that officially wraps up this edition of Unsportsmanlike Conduct. I'm Damon Turvin.